So, I am the counsellor. I'm an English teacher, end of year, and also university counsellor. So it's really good in touch with me at some stage, um, to tell me what your thoughts are and have a conversation. And we can do that at any time. If there are people who are not here, then, we can do this again. You can talk to me. I had a 30-minute conversation with Ada's brother a couple of days ago, who asked me this, and he's in year 12, Lula. So it's not too late, really, even when you finish school, even when you've started university in Buenos Aires. Plenty of people do that. If you're here in year 9 already thinking about it, that's even better. So the answer to most people's question, I suppose your first question is, studying abroad, I don't know what that means exactly, but is it a possibility for me? Is it something which I should be thinking about? And I think my main answer to that would be, probably the main limiting factor is going to be financial. Yeah? Some people might be thinking, academic, that's going to be my main thing, because I'd never be able to get into Harvard. It's true that not everybody can get into Harvard. Yeah, some people do. We've got plenty of kids that have gone to Harvard, to Yale, to Stanford. Yeah, that's another good piece of news for you. The school has, the teachers and the system, and our IB system is good enough to get people to the top universities in the States. I did not say Oxford or Cambridge. I don't know if anybody's got in there yet. Yeah, but within the States, those top Ivy Leagues, we've had people. I don't know of anybody getting into MIT, actually, now I think about it. But Harvard, Yale, Georgetown, Princeton, those ones, yes. So if one of your things is financial, that's definitely a conversation which you can be having straight away with your parents. And like, is there any possibility? Because it's quite likely that they'll say, you're joking. Yeah, you'd need to get a huge scholarship and I'll see what I can do. Yeah. Well, that's not impossible. It's not impossible, and there is a range in the States and in other parts of the world. But the truth of the matter is, it's never going to be as cheap as Uber. It's never going to be as cheap as Uber. Uber is free, and there aren't very many Ubers in the world. So your question all the way along is going to be, what is my motivation? Yeah. Is there a chance I could study abroad? Yes, if it's the right thing for you. Yeah. And so that's kind of like what we're talking about a little bit today. And I think it's really important to get it on the table. I don't sell this. I'm not a salesman. I'm here to help you. And I don't sell it because I personally, spoiler alert, put all my cards on the table. I hope I'm going to send my own kids to Uber, yeah, because it's going to be a real saving for me. And not just that, I'm mean, but that's not the only thing. It's a really good university, and it's got this completely different thing going on. It's a public university, which is real world experience that you guys may not have already, coming from a private school like San Andres. I think it's very complementary. It's not the only way that you could have a complementary experience. One could be going to another country. So, but apart from Uber, you've got other good universities here. San Andres is the most popular one, probably the IPA, very popular. So, as opposed to other countries in Latin America, you guys don't have to go off. You don't. I think in Colombia and other places, there aren't so many good universities, so people tend to, they can. That's not your case. And in my experience, most of you will probably end up staying here and end up deciding that you can go and study abroad, do a master's. Yeah? That's the classic. And I think it's a sensible option, particularly when you've got a culture here is very, very much about the family and very much about friends. Yeah? So really you're opting out of something which is a big part of your identity. Can you do that? Absolutely, but you have to really want it. Typical people that go abroad, people who've got parents who've studied in the States or who've got US citizenship, who've lived in the States and have always kind of been half thinking of when they're going to go back. Yeah, those are that's the main typical profile. After that, people, another good reason. You want to study something which is not available here. Yeah, art is something which perhaps, you want to study film, you want to study digital animation, that kind of thing, filmmaking, and you can go and study in Los Angeles. I mean, maybe you should just go. I don't know. But there are certain things which may be more difficult to study here. Yeah. The other thing which is to really bear in mind is where you see yourself living. Yeah, because there are definitely courses where you could easily complicate your life. For example, going to study medicine or pre-med in the UK or in the States and trying to come back here. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to. You'd have to study medicine again here. So these are things which, as 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, you want to have your eyes open. Yeah. Okay. That's that aside. Let's say you've got a very good reason. Perhaps another good reason is I really just want to leave. Yeah, I want to. I don't like Argentina actually. I'm going crazy living at home. Yeah, I really just want an adventure. That's valid. That's valid. Okay, so it has to be a clear reason. The next thing I think is sort of just to give you a very, very brief sort of introduction to the different options. Most of you are probably thinking the US, and so we'll leave that till the last. Other places where people will apply to are the UK, Europe, Australia, Canada. And let's just, if we think in terms of where, and also the educational philosophy, because you probably don't quite, does anybody know what liberal arts is? Put your hand up if you know what liberal arts is. Okay, very many people. That's really important to know. What is liberal arts not? It's basically what happens in Argentina and in the UK, which is you decide to study something. You decide to study whatever, electronic engineering, medicine, psychology, yeah, whatever. You choose your subject. You start from the first day till your graduation day. You're studying subjects related to that, and you're preparing yourself to be a highly kind of qualified, at least in theory, professional. Yeah, that's what happens in Argentina. The degrees in Argentina are, I think most people would agree, a little bit too long. You have to do 40 subjects in order to graduate. And it's a bit too much. Certainly, if you were English, you would say it's too much. We like you choosing something. They're going to be shorter degrees in the UK, and the idea is to get you out as soon as possible and get you working, because we think that the real learning happens on the job. Yeah? The UK and Argentina have that in common. There's that different. The US has this, and then we'll talk about the others because they're kind of somewhere in between. The US has an approach which is different. They don't think that people of your age, 17-year-olds, know what they want to do the rest of their lives. Yeah, that's quite probably you know, a good starting place. What they do then is they say, you can tell me if you want what you want to study, and in fact, some of them you'll need to apply to an arts school within NYU, for example, ish, or the business school in NYU, which is called something else. My nephew is there. I've forgotten what it's called, but there are famous business schools. You will still be required to do other subjects which are not really obviously related to business, like art. Yeah, history of art. You might take courses in a history of art here, or something to do with classical music here, literature. That's the way they will expect you to keep experimenting in the States for 2 years. It's only after the end of the 2 years that you'll choose your major. Yeah. Somebody's already mentioned it, Valentina, I think. You can do more than one major. In fact, you can do 3 major. I've never heard of anybody doing more, but it's crazy. If you're one of these crazy people that want to just completely overwhelm yourself, you can do 3 majors. Otherwise, you do 1 major and minors. Okay. What happens with the States then is that you're getting a more well-rounded education. It's an extension of your IB, really. And you would probably, you're not going to go into the same depth as you would if you were here in Argentina. And so the day you graduate, you will probably be thinking about what your master's is going to be. Yeah. I always ask, and someone said, no, you don't need a master's to work in the States, but I kind of feel that you do. I feel that that's a natural step. People get to the end of their degree and they're applying for masters, which happens all over the world. Some people don't have to do them. Some people don't do them. Sometimes it takes years before you get around to doing a master's. I get the impression in the States is a little bit more part of the deal there. Okay, what else? You've got Canada, which is similar to the States, I would say, in that educational philosophy. In Australia, I think it's probably somewhere in between. I think you're probably more likely to choose a subject. In Europe, more like the UK, although there are universities in Europe which are actually branches of American universities or have the same liberal arts system. There's a bit of a mix there. And that's what you'll discover. There are the unifying body which you can apply to all universities in the UK with, yeah. But the same application gets sent to up to 5 universities. In the States, most of the universities are on something called the Common App, which most universities are on, but not all. Canada, you're going to apply directly to the university. It's much simpler, as I'll tell you in a minute. Australia, same, direct admission. Europe, there's no unifying body. We're talking about different countries. They tend to be quite a lot more straightforward than the States. Okay. Let's talk a bit about the States, shall we? Because in terms of the cost, I think let's go to scholarships. If you need a scholarship, I think the States is probably the only place because they're really expensive. You start looking at the price tags, it's jaw-dropping. You know, we're talking about your education could cost you $500,000 if you were to pay the whole thing. And think about the living expenses; it's just absolutely off the charts. If you look, College Board is the site, and there's another one called Niche, which people have just discovered, which I didn't know about. You start to see that there are the price tag, and then what the average person sort of financial aid that people get. Yeah, so you see that that's almost automatic for people that set the whole price. But if you need a scholarship, when you apply to the state, and let's say I don't think any of the other countries really are going to give you scholarships. I'm sorry about that. I don't think that's going to happen. It's the state. So you apply to a university in the States, and I'll talk about the application in a minute. But parallel to that, at the end of your application, you basically tell them whether you need financial assistance or not. And they then start their process of asking your parents for their financial information. Yeah. And basically with those two, files of information, they decide how much they want you. Yeah, because they might really want you, but in fact they haven't got any budget left. Or your application is so strong that they're prepared to pay the whole ride. That has happened in my lifetime at the school. We had a kid who got Yale and Harvard and Princeton fighting over him. Harvard came to the school to take him out for lunch. He was an extraordinary candidate, but that does happen. Okay, there are possibilities if you're great at sports or if you've got other particular talents. They tend to just take it into consideration with the other parts of your application. It's not that you'll get given a free ride because you're an amazing tennis player. We had an amazing tennis player at the school 3 or 4 years ago who won a competition at 14. He won the Orange Bowl, and he got the attention of all of the trainers in the States, and he ended up getting into Stanford. It was also because his academics were Stanford level. We had another guy who was excellent at fencing, and he got accepted or got invited by the Harvard coach. His grades weren't good enough to get into Harvard, so he got into Brown instead. Yeah, which is fantastic as well. Okay, so those things will just get into your application, and you're going to present yourself in the best possible way. In financial terms, then, scholarships, we're talking about the state, but if you're talking about how to actually have, how to be able to afford an education outside of the country, I would say the UK is not a cheap option. It's possibly, it's probably going to be as expensive as the public university in the States. One way in which you can all get a big discount is to go to a big public university in the States. Yeah, they're not as selective. So the great selling point of these smaller colleges is that you're in a class with 10 others. You get really personalized treatment. Michigan State University, which is always one of the top ranked for engineering, is a bit more like a public university. They're going to be big lecture halls. The lecturer might not know you. Yeah? So it all has value. It might even have monetary value if somebody who, your tutor who knows you, who you've had dinner with, is the one who might be able to give you your first job. When all of these things come into play. So that's a bit about the money. The UK is expensive for people that live there, and it's more expensive for people that don't live there. But it might still be cheaper than, some of the most expensive, will be cheaper than the most expensive universities in the States. Okay. Canada is cheaper. Australia is cheaper. Europe can be ridiculously cheap. It tends to be cheaper. If anybody wants to go and study either international relations or economics, they can do that for almost for free at one of the world's most historic universities in Bologna in Italy. Yeah, and they have a sede here in Argentina where you do your first year and then you go to Italy. It sounds kind of like a dream. So far, we haven't had anybody applying. There are those opportunities. Germany are literally saying, come and study at our universities for free. Yes, you need to learn German, but maybe some some of you speak German, or you've got time to learn German. You know, sounds crazy, but there's no real reason why you couldn't at least try. We've got people in Belgium who have family in Belgium, and so it was obvious to them. Same with Holland, and they tend to be sort of subsidized by the state, so they can be very interesting. They all have their own direct applications. They're not typically difficult to get into. Yeah. What else? You have to be thinking about what you want. It's not just what you want to study. Where if you're going to have this international experience, you get to choose to an extent where. Yeah. So Canada might sound great, but it's no small joke, no small detail that it's really cold. Yeah. If you don't like the cold, do not go to Canada. You're going to have a miserable time. Yeah. Australia is obviously a long way away, and it's kind of like the time difference. So it sounds like an absolute dream. Who would not want to go to university and then go and surf after their classes? It sounds perfect, and it's safe, and everybody's happy, and it's amazing. But somehow it's just a bit too far away and difficult to bring people in contact. So those things are important. Europe, I'm from Europe, and the actual connection you have between countries is so wonderful that you can think that you could finish your classes and get on a train to a Greek island. It's just amazing. So those things are real possibilities if you're going to open up the game. No? What else? Let's talk about the application. The UK, let's talk about the UK. They are only interested in your decision, why you've decided to study electronic engineering. They want to know your background, where it came from. They want to hear about your uncle who invented something. They want to hear what you're reading, what TED Talk you're into, your experience, your work experience. Yeah, I will write a letter taking in, the comments from your higher level subject teachers, and I will answer the same question. Why do I recommend Marcos to study this course of study? Yeah, that's all they're interested in. They're quite blinkered. Yeah, and it's very straightforward. The application to the UK is very straightforward. It's quite demanding academically. If you want to get into the top universities, even not the famous ones, the ones that you might have heard of, we will probably be asking for a 35 above, 35 plus in the IB, which isn't easy to get from our, statistic. Okay, so in that sense, the IB is going to be more important for you if you wanted to study in the UK. The US, you can. Well, should we talk about the US application process? It's the biggest kind of most complex one, and the biggest complication is this SAT, the SAT and the ACT. Alan has done it. Who else? Anybody else who's started? It's basically the way that the US sort of standardizes. They can understand what the SAT numbers mean, right? So the problem is it's not something that it's not a testing style that we are particularly used to here. It's kind of multiple choice. So you would need to spend definitely time preparing. You can buy the books. There's lots of stuff online. Some of it you have to pay for. You don't need to pay for an extra, tutor. Some people do, some people don't. But you've got the choice between the SAT and the ACT. They serve the same purpose. They've got different styles, and you can have a look at both to see which one you like best. There doesn't seem to be any, advantage to one or the other. You sit for the test at Lincoln School, ideally at the end of year 11. Again, for the winter break in year 12. The ideal thing is to get it out the way before your IBs, before the winter holidays and before the IBs. The actual application itself, when people start having to write their statements, which is, you know, quite a business, that will be from September of the year before you want to study. So if you're in year 12, you'll start filling it in September of this year in order to study in September of next year. Okay. So that's the ideal thing. Lula, who I spoke to the other day, hasn't done his SAT yet. He can when they reopen, because it's on pause at the moment. He can do that towards the end of the year, and he can apply in January. So once he's finished school, he can. That's the deadline is the 1st of January. Okay. However, there is an early application date, which is November the 1st. Yeah, so I always think it's great for us if we can get it done before then, which has a couple of advantages. One is that you get it out of the way, and you can concentrate in your IBs. Although it does interfere a little bit with your IB study. It's not perfect timing for us. But if you could start practicing what you're writing and that kind of thing, and have your university lists sort of more or less ready a little bit before, it would be an advantage. The other thing is you can apply in 2 different ways. You apply early decision, early action. Basically both of them, you choose university that you really like, that is a real priority for you. Yeah, and so it's kind of like a gesture of you know, pick me, I love you. We should get married. That's the idea. You're saying to your one university, you're my special love. And if it's early action, no, let's go with, if it's early decision, if they accept you, you get put on a pile which is a bit different to the others. You get put on a special sort of priority pile. You're the first applications that they look at. Yeah, so that's great. If they give you the place, if they offer you the place, you are obliged to go there ethically. I don't know if anybody's been put in prison for not, but that's the idea. You go there. It's early decision. It's binding, as we say. The other one, early action, you're going to be on a pile, you know, priority pile, but if you offered the place, you're not under any obligation to go to that university. Okay. One big question is, what can I be doing now to prepare for, you know, want to study abroad? Well, we've talked about the bigger question of kind of like thinking about why you would want to. The other ones I would say are fairly, you're doing what you should be doing at the moment, which is concentrating on doing well at school. Yeah, your marks are always the most important thing. And there's lots in your application. Your marks are really most important. The first thing they'll look at. Then they'll look at your SATs. Then they might look at your IBs. Not all the universities in the States are that interested. It's not a big thing in the States. Not as big as it is in other parts of the world. But if those three sort of evaluations are consistent, that's what you need. But your marks are the most important thing. Yeah, so don't neglect your studies. While we're talking about the marks, this is something which has come up. You will eventually be hearing about GPA, and in fact, if you start looking at the websites and what GPA they're looking at, well, that's your grade point average, and we give you your what they ask for is your last 4 years. Yeah, so you've got year 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right. I do it. I make it. I write it in English. It's not like an official document for the Ministry of Education in Argentina, but it's the school's document, and it's perfectly official enough for the universities. Yeah, and you've got your marks there. We don't, as a school policy, calculate a 4-scale GPA, because in the States it's in a 4-scale grade. We have a 10 scale. Okay, so they're just different systems. Okay, what the universities do, and they have absolutely no problem with this, is that they get their calculator out and they just sort of put your numbers in and decide what they think your GPA is. There aren't even, not a universal way to calculate a GPA in the States. Different schools have different systems, so we leave that then. The other thing which will come up is your ranking. We don't rank you either, yeah, for all sorts of reasons which aren't that interesting. What we do when I write a letter as a counsellor for you guys, for the UK and for the States, definitely. At the top of that letter, I say, I tell them what your IB prediction is, yeah, and I say which percentile that puts you in. It could be that you've got the top IB prediction in your cohort, so that will obviously be number one. I will say that, or if you're in the top 5 percentile, 10, 50, wherever you are, and so they will be able to calculate your GPA and see your ranking. Okay, that's not something to worry about. What else? Apart from the academics, your extracurricular stuff is important. This is something which is perhaps not obvious, but it makes a lot of sense. In China, there are a lot of people who are getting perfect scores in things, perfect IB scores. China, Singapore, these are countries where to get less than 100% is failure. Yeah. So in some ways, you're not going to compete with those guys. Yeah. But the American universities want as much diversity as possible, and really what they're saying is, they don't want to fill all of their sort of international quota with Chinese and people from the same part of the world. Yeah. So, and they also say that in these sorts of education systems where everything is kind of a little bit more test-based, perhaps things which they're not so great at are creativity, leadership, sort of social skills, which actually here in Argentina you are generally really good at. I mean, it's a very sociable culture, and a school like St Andrews gives you lots of opportunity. You have to find opportunities to do stuff, to create opportunities, to lead things in classes. Even if that's telling a teacher, can I present on this because I'm really into it at the moment. Make sure that your teacher remembers that when they send a comment. Yeah? But it's not just about being an SVA or prefect or house captain. There's lots of stuff which you can be doing. Lots of stuff. Let's just talk about that. They don't want, when they look at your extracurriculars, they don't just want pages and pages and pages of things which you've done. They basically, that will be a turn off. What would be wonderful is if you show that you've got engaged in 1, 2, 3 activities in a deeper way, yeah? And something which you've spent time doing over an extended amount of time, ideally something which is in a sense measurable. Yeah, so let's go to the football or sports. If you say I love playing football and I'm really good, that's one thing. If you say I play for this team and we won the championship, we won the championship 2 years running, it's an important competition, and you've got a video which you can send to that's kind of evidence. So anything which is which can be registered, can be demonstrated, is obviously better. What else? What are you going to end up? How are you going to put all of this in your application? Well, different ways, but the Common App, which I spoke about, will give you different spaces in which to write. The first main thing is a personal statement, and you'll have to answer a question like, talk about a significant event in your life, yeah, or somebody who's made a big impression on you. One of these sale kind of questions, and you're going to find a way to engage them, because you've got 15 minutes to read your whole application. What I've written, what two teachers have written, what you've written, your marks. And so your statement is actually really important, and it should be memorable. Yeah. It's going to get into the essence of who you are. Let's say you went on a community service activity to the old people's home. Yeah. You don't want to say, we went to the old people's home and it was really moving because, no. There's just something which you can talk about, and only you. Yeah? So I had a conversation, I found myself sitting next to a lady who was deaf, and I realized how difficult it was to communicate. And that made me reflect on the importance of communication in my life, communication with my family, with my friend, whatever. You've opened a door on your in a world which will be unforgettable, and hopefully you will be able to say, hey, the guy from Buenos Aires, which one? The guy who sat next to the deaf lady. Ah, yeah, really like that. Something which is an image, a memorable, something which people will hook onto. Okay, so that's really important. Shouldn't be underestimated. You're going to have that statement which will be seen by any university that you want to apply to. It will also give you other spaces which you should fill to talk about other things. Yeah, don't leave anything empty. Yeah. What else? Then each university, and this is something which is, again, a bit of a brag, but it's kind of like this is where the time, when you apply to the States, a lot of time is implied, because you're expected to come up with, let's say, 9 universities, and 9 will be looking at your SATs, your grades, work out that they're kind of slightly they're slightly above your natural range. Yeah? So, there's no harm in applying for MIT if you think you've got a fighting chance. But if your average is 7 point something, then you're probably wasting your time. Yeah, but if you think that there's a slight possibility, those are your reach universities. Then you want safe universities, which are ones which you think, if you were to do really, really badly, yeah, you could probably get in, and it wouldn't be difficult, and you'd be happy to go there. And then the 3 which are your sort of in the middle, your comfort zone, you should be able to get there. So you're going to have a range of universities. Each university you apply to will ask you then to write supplementary statement, which in one way or another is going to say, why do you want to come to my university? Yeah, what do you think you've got to offer my university? So that implies hours of research, actually. The number 10, I was told at the beginning when I started doing this, that you should be doing 10 hours of research on the universities that you're applying to, each one, because you want to be able to say, I am, just so excited about the new arts centre with that fantastic theatre with that state-of-the-art sound equipment. The volleyball team, it's amazing how they've been, just knocking it out of the park for the last 3 years. And I love volleyball. Yeah. you get what I'm saying. So you should be thinking about, definitely with the states. And yeah, I think really only with the states that they will want that kind of level of sycophancy and detail. There is apparently a lot of competition to get into these places, so they can make you jump through as many hoops as they can think of, basically, which is the opposite to Argentina, where sadly so few people go to university that it's very easy for you guys. Okay, same reason it's easier to get into Australia. Not as many people want to go there. Likewise with Canada. The UK, well, apparently there's quite a lot of competition there. Okay, thank you. Alan's just told me that I'm running out of time. Tell me what you're interested in. Let's keep in touch. Eventually, you'll end up trying to find 2 teachers that are going to write recommendations, and I will write a recommendation. My top tip of the day is always say thank you to people. Give people enough time to do stuff for you, and always say thank you. Yeah. As a counsellor, I don't take it personally, but I do think that it's sad when people chase me and chase me and chase me and write these wonderful mails, and then I give them what they want, I press submit, I tell them that it's done, and I never hear back from them. That's just basic kind of lack of education, and not, it's going to be a limitation for you, because you're going to have to ask the same people the same sometimes. So that's really important. Plus, at the end of the year, when you graduate, Valin, if I can go on holiday, I would love to. There's always people that remember that they wanted to apply here while I'm on holiday, and that's okay. I can do that. You're risking your future, if you like, because I might not have the document which I need. Okay? So respect times. You will need me, and you'll need other people. So give us plenty of time and keep us in the loop. How are we doing, Valin?
What? Sorry.
How are we doing for time?
We have 5 minutes. We're in the break time. I don't know if anyone.
Okay, well, I'm done. But if you've got any questions now or any time.
Hey, Andrew.
Yeah.
The GPA. Can you give us like some kind of like preview of our GPA, like to know where we're at?
You can do that. Go to GPA calculator, Google, and that's all I've done when I've had to do it, because it happened last year that some outside agency, occasionally they don't trust us. They're universities, they tend not to be very famous ones, prestigious ones, who say we need to validate any school's marks if they're not in Argentina, if they're not in the States. Yeah, Valen's having that problem. And you kind of go, okay, why? If it's good enough for Harvard, kind of like, no, they want. And so you have to send it to an agency. What happened last year was the agency miscalculated Emma Shelpers' grades and gave her a 2-point-something average. I don't know why. She paid money for that. I put it into the GPA calculator that I found on Google, and it was a 3-point-something. And I sent it to the university, and they said, "Oh, thanks."
I had the same problem as Valen, because I want to apply to the same university.
I know. Well, what I've said to Valen and Joaquin as well, it's a bit soon in year 12 because we haven't got any marks yet. But once you've got marks, I can send a transcript, and we can start that process. Yeah, I think it's a bit messy. I don't know who these people are and how they would know Andrew's school any better than
yes.
But
and sorry, what would be a good GPA like for you to get in a good school?
No, well, I don't think that's, well, in terms of a 4-scale GPA, I have no idea. I think the closer to 4, the better. So we just have to think in our terms of 10 scale. So the closer you've got to a 10, the better. Good, if you're applying for the top universities, I would say a 9+ is probably what you're looking at there. Top universities.
Andrew,
Marcos.
I have a question. What's a GPA credit?
Oh, I know it. So when you do a GPA, there's two kinds of GPA. You have the normal GPA, and then you have the weighted GPA. And the weighted GPA, what it adds is if you take a class that has a higher difficulty, like an honors or an AP class, which I don't think that translates at our school into
it doesn't
anything.
Translate.
Then
it's
you
very funny.
Yeah, you can get
very funny because they have to say, sorry.
Yeah.
I have to say in the Common App, we don't rank, and we don't calculate. And they say, okay, is your GPA weighted or unweighted? They allow you to say we don't, but you still have to choose between weighted and unweighted.
So in our school we cannot get like extra credits, like doing
no
high level.
No, but when it asks on the Common App, it says, would you say that your students' curriculum is very demanding, slightly demanding, most demanding, or most demanding? I put
And
most demanding. I don't think, as far as I understand them from what people are saying, IB is as demanding as it gets. If I put most demanding.
Okay. Thank you.
Have to go. Thank you for your attention.